All right, welcome back, my friends. Today, exciting day, graphing using intercepts 4.3. So we always want to look for the easiest way to do something. And yesterday we learned that if you start with y equals, this was from 4.2, and then it gave you an equation, the easiest way to do that was to plug in some x values and make yourself a table. And then once you had a table, you could just plot the points and go from there. So that was a pretty slick way to do it. But if you have an equation in what we call standard form, which looks like this, then it's not an easy way to do it. And getting it so that you have y equals something is really a lot of math involved. So sometimes it's best to look at the problem and say, ooh, this one is in standard form. So that would be like 2x plus 3y equals 6, or negative x minus 4y equals 8. Those are in standard form. So just like this says, there's something with an x like these, plus or minus something with a y like these, and that equals a constant or a number like this column. So these are just going to be examples of standard form. So when you see that, it's kind of tricky to plug in an x and kick out y's. So we're going to look at another way to go about doing that. And that is going to be by using intercepts. So this is graphing using intercepts. Okay, so you really just need 2 points to make a line. And if you're 100% sure those 2 points are correct, when you connect them, they're going to make the line that you intended to make. So the 2 points that we're going to focus on getting are called the x-intercept and the y-intercept. So how do you find them? First of all, intercept means to like cross. So the x-intercept is where it crosses the x-axis. And every equation in this standard form will do that. It will cross the x-axis at some point. Now, so in my picture, that's this point right here. And this is my x-axis, so that's where my line, this is my line, is crossing the x-axis, and that's at negative 1, 2, 3. Okay, so when I go to plot or write that point, based on what we've been learning in chapter 4, I need to go 3 to the left, and then I don't go up or down. So there's always going to be a 0. When you do x-intercept, you're always going to have a number here telling you where it's crossing the x-axis, and then a 0. So this is going to be always 0 when you're finding the x-intercept. So it's kind of opposite. When you're looking for the x-intercept, you will always have a 0 for y, because that means you didn't go up or down. And so therefore, you can just stay on the x-axis. So the y-intercept is going to be, not surprisingly, where it crosses the y-axis. So keep in mind, that's this axis that goes up and down. So this one, oops, I didn't put this on here, sorry. You're going to have written as whatever number where it crosses, and then the 0. For this one, to get to this point, I can't go left or right. So I go 0 as an x value, not to the right, not to the left. I go straight up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in this case. So my x-intercept here is 0, 7, but it's always going to be 0 followed by a number, because in order to be on the y-axis, you can't go right or left. So it's really important to know this, because that's what's going to help us build our table and make it easy to do these. So in this particular case, I had a y-intercept of 7, so 0, 7, and an x-intercept of negative 3, 0. And then if I know that those 2 points are correct, that's good enough, and I would be able to connect them together in this line and get the exact right line. So here are a few examples that we can look at together, and we're going to find this using the intercepts. I'm still going to use a table, but it's going to look a little different than yesterday, you can see. So here's what happens. To find this first value, now this one's going to have a 0 first, so that's going to tell me my y-intercept, where it will cross the y. And then this one, which has a 0 in the second spot, is going to be telling me my x-intercept. Where is it going to cross the x? So how do I find that out? Well, this 0 is getting plugged in for x. So I take my equation and I put a 0 in for x. Now, what you know is that anytime you multiply by 0, it really just cancels out this part of the problem. In fact, if you can think about it and it makes sense to you, you can just ignore that part. Because you put a 0 in for x, it wipes out this entire part of the equation, and you're just left with the y part to solve. If that is totally confusing to you, then you can leave that part in there. But either way, excuse me, you're going to get to this spot, oops, and you're going to need to solve what's left by dividing by 4. So this one tells me that it will have a y value of 3. So it will cross the y at 1, 2, 3. Now keep in mind, this is the y-intercept. It's got a 0 up here for x, so I didn't go right or left. I simply went to the 3. That's going to be my y-intercept. So that's where it's going to cross the y. I do the same kind of thing for the x-intercept, but here you have the y value is 0. So I would go to my equation up here. I would be putting in a 0 for y, but if you put a 0 in for y, that part cancels out because 4 times 0 is nothing. Or if you'd rather, you can just leave it out altogether, and you can have just the 3x equals 12 part. So basically, going back to this other one, you used the y part of the equation to find your y-intercept. And now I'm using the x part of my equation to find my x-intercept. So divide by 3. And so x will be 4. So it's telling you it's going to cross the x-axis at 1, 2, 3, 4, 0. It's going to cross the y-axis over here at 0, 3. And now that I have both of those points, since I know those two are correct, I can just draw my line through them and then be done and know that that's accurate. So let's try again. So here, to do this one, I'm putting a 0 in for x. So that would eliminate the x part of my equation, leaving me with negative 6y equals 6. Dividing that by negative 6, I would find out that it will cross the y at negative 1. So I go to the y-axis, I go to negative 1, and I have my y-intercept. Okay, now when it's time to do my x-intercept, I'm putting the 0 in for y because it's in the y column. So if I go to my equation and I put in a 0 for y, that will eliminate the y part, leaving me with negative 3x equals 6. Dividing by negative 3, I find out that the x-intercept will be located at negative 2. So I go to negative 2 on the x-axis. I've got my 2 points. I can get out my straight edge and draw a line through both of them. And that is going to be my equation graphed using the intercepts. If I made a big old table like yesterday and I filled in a bunch of x's and plugged them in, it would be really kind of hard to figure them out based on this equation, but I could do it and I'd end up with the same thing. I'm just looking for the easier way to do the problem. So try this last one, turn the video off, see if you get it, and then come back and see if you knew what you were doing. All right, I'm going to find the y-intercept by putting a 0 in for x, so I'm thinking that will leave me with just the y part of my equation. Dividing by negative 9 with all my mad solving skills, I find out that it will cross the y-axis at 2. Awesome. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to solve for my x-intercept. And I'm going to do that by putting a 0 in for y, like it says right here. So that would eliminate this part because negative 9 times 0 would become nothing. So I'd be left with 3x equals negative 18. So when I divide by 3, x is negative 6. So I'm going to cross the x-axis, that's this one, at negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so I'm going to get my straight edge out, I'm going to try to draw a line through these two. And there we go. So like when I'm trying to look at your paper, some of these you'll do on IXL, but when you take the test, it'll be on paper. Make sure you make this obvious, you know, put your numbers into your table so that I can see what you're doing. Or if it makes it easier, you could be like, this is -6, this is +2. Make it obvious. And if it's really messy and I don't know what you're doing, I'm probably not going to give you credit for it. So hopefully this helps you with graphing using intercepts, and then you can do some practice again and ask any questions if you need to. You could pop in to the Wednesday WebEx at 12:15, or you can shoot me an email if you have a quick question. Have a great day, guys. Bye.